Beneath the restless waves of the East China Sea, where powerful currents churn and silence presses heavy against the ocean floor, lies a formation so immense and so deliberate in appearance that it threatens to upend everything we thought we knew about human history. Some call it a trick of nature, sculpted by time and erosion. Others whisper a far more chilling possibility, that this is the sunken skeleton of a forgotten civilization. Japan's Atlantis. The place is known as the Yonaguni Monument. At first glance, it looks like a vast staircase carved into the seabed, its massive steps dropping deeper and deeper into the abyss. Sharp corners rise like broken pyramids, wide terraces spread out like ceremonial platforms, and stone corridors seem to guide divers into shadowed passageways. It is a place that feels less like geology and more like architecture. Architecture abandoned thousands of years ago and now swallowed by the sea. But here is the real question. Who built it, if anyone did? The year was 1986. Off the coast of Yonaguni Island, Japan's westernmost point, a group of divers searching for hammerhead sharks stumbled upon something entirely unexpected. As their flashlights cut through the blue haze of the water, they found themselves face to face with massive stone blocks rising from the ocean floor. At first, it seemed impossible. Natural rock shouldn't arrange itself into perfect rectangles or align itself like steps leading into a temple. And yet, here it was. A monument the size of a city block, concealed beneath the waves. What began as an accidental discovery would soon erupt into one of archaeology's greatest debates. Was this an underwater city? Evidence of a lost civilization drowned by the rising seas of the last ice age? Or was it nothing more than the patient work of tectonics and erosion, an illusion that only looked like human craftsmanship? The divers returned again and again, each time surfacing with more questions than answers. Massive staircases, perfectly flat terraces, and towering walls that seemed to rise in symmetry, all captured on grainy underwater footage. To the untrained eye, it looked unmistakably man-made. To skeptics, it was nature's trickery, playing games with human imagination. But the deeper you go, the stranger it gets. Because carved into the stone, or what appear to be carvings, are shapes resembling animals, patterns that look like faces, and markings that cannot easily be dismissed as natural fractures. Could this truly be a record of a forgotten people? A civilization swallowed whole by the ocean thousands of years before written history began? And if so, who were they? For decades, archaeologists and geologists have fought over the truth of Yonaguni. Some insist it is a geological wonder, formed by natural processes. Others, like Professor Masaki Kimura, believe it to be the ruins of a 10,000-year-old city, older than the pyramids of Egypt, older even than Mesopotamia. If Kimura is right, Yonaguni would rewrite the story of human civilization itself. But beneath the surface of the debate lies a deeper mystery. Ancient Okinawan legends speak of kingdoms swallowed by the sea. Tales of Mu, a mythical Pacific continent lost beneath the waves, linger in folklore. And if such legends hold even a grain of truth, then Yonaguni may not just be a curiosity of geology. It may be the last surviving remnant of a vanished world. The divers who descend into Yonaguni often describe the same eerie sensation. It is not simply that they are swimming through stone. It is that they feel as if they are trespassing in the ruins of something sacred. A place built for purposes long forgotten, now entombed in silence. Imagine walking through an ancient temple where no one has set foot in thousands of years. Only here, the temple breathes water instead of air. And yet, no matter how much evidence divers bring back, the mainstream remains unconvinced. They argue that nature is capable of creating sharp lines and flat plains under the right conditions. They point to similar formations around the world, from basalt columns to fractured cliffs, and dismiss Yonaguni as nothing more than coincidence. But coincidence alone cannot explain everything. Why do some of the structures align so precisely with astronomical directions? Why do certain staircases seem built for human feet, rather than random chance? Why do patterns resembling carvings appear on the stones, etched as if to record a forgotten story? The answers remain hidden, locked beneath layers of salt water and silence. But one thing is certain. Yonaguni refuses to be ignored. Whether natural or artificial, it is a place that forces us to confront the limits of our knowledge, to ask whether history is far older and far stranger than we dare to believe. And as we descend deeper into this mystery, a question begins to surface, unshakable and haunting. If Yonaguni is a city swallowed by the sea, then what else lies waiting beneath the oceans, lost to time, waiting for us to find? To truly understand Yonaguni, you must descend into its silent corridors. The first thing that strikes divers is the sheer scale of the structure. Stretching nearly 150 meters in length and rising 27 meters high from the seabed, it feels less like a random pile of rock and more like the foundation of an ancient city swallowed whole by the sea. Imagine approaching it from the murky blue waters. The ocean floor suddenly gives way to sharp edges, massive platforms, and angular terraces. Your eyes strain to adjust, unsure if you are looking at natural cliffs or staircases built by human hands. And then, as the silt clears, you see them. Steps so precise they look carved, platforms that resemble courtyards, and walls that rise in near-perfect symmetry. The most famous feature is known as the main terrace. It resembles a grand staircase, each step rising in smooth, flat intervals, some over 6 feet tall, others stretching wide like ceremonial platforms. Divers say it feels like climbing a pyramid, except the climb is done in silence, under crushing water pressure, with only the sound of your breathing echoing in your ears. To the left of the terrace, structures fan outward into geometric patterns. Flat plazas, sharp-edged walls, and corridors that seem to lead somewhere, though they end abruptly in the sand. Some terraces appear to have channels, as if designed to direct water, or perhaps as pathways for something long forgotten. But it is not just the terraces that baffle explorers. Rising from the seabed are monolithic blocks, their surfaces so flat and straight, they resemble giant stone slabs cut with tools. One particular formation has earned the nickname the stage. It looks like an altar or platform, as if built for ceremonies that no longer have names. Divers who have floated above it often describe a chilling sensation, the impression of standing before an audience long gone, addressing a crowd that has been swallowed by the ocean. Further along, divers speak of a structure that resembles a massive trident-shaped roadway, flanked by straight walls. Its edges are so sharp that skeptics insist erosion alone could not have shaped them. Supporters of the ancient city theory claim this roadway once led into the heart of Yonaguni, a boulevard of stone meant for processions or sacred passage. And then there is the most haunting feature of all, the pyramid-like formation. Rising in tiered levels, it looks unmistakably like a ziggurat or step pyramid. Each layer appears stacked with precision, as though meant to represent power, ceremony, or cosmic alignment. If Yonaguni were above water, this structure alone would convince many of its artificial origin. But down here, beneath the crushing sea, it exists in limbo. Too perfect to ignore, too unbelievable to accept. Even more unsettling are the features that seem almost too human. Carvings resembling animals have been reported, including a massive stone that some divers insist resembles the head of a turtle. Another is said to carry the outline of a human face, worn, eroded, but eerily present. Could these be figments of imagination, pareidolia born from wishful thinking? Or are they echoes of a people desperate to leave behind their mark before the ocean consumed them? Professor Masaki Kimura, the marine geologist who has devoted decades to studying Yonaguni, believes these structures are not accidents. In his research, he identified what he calls 10 distinct features that suggest intentional design: roads, staircases, terraces, and even what he describes as a stone stadium. His surveys show alignments too precise to be random, edges that run parallel, terraces that rise at consistent heights, and blocks that appear to have been fitted together. Kimura has gone further still. He suggests that Yonaguni may not stand alone, but rather be part of a larger sunken cityscape. His surveys have revealed scattered formations in the surrounding seabed, stretching for kilometers. If true, this would mean Yonaguni is not just one monument, but the ruins of an entire metropolis, a city swallowed by the sea more than 10,000 years ago. But here lies the heart of the mystery. If Yonaguni is man-made, it would date back to the end of the last ice age, a time when sea levels were far lower. Back then, much of what is now ocean floor would have been dry land. But mainstream archaeology insists that organized human civilization did not yet exist, that cities, temples, and monumental architecture would not appear until thousands of years later. If Yonaguni is truly artificial, then it rewrites the story of humanity. It suggests that long before Mesopotamia, long before Egypt, long before Sumer, a forgotten people had already mastered architecture, stonework, and perhaps even the beginnings of science and astronomy. Skeptics, of course, offer a different explanation. They argue that the rock formations of Yonaguni are composed of sandstone and mudstone, materials prone to fracturing along horizontal and vertical planes. This type of natural erosion, they say, is capable of producing flat surfaces and right angles. To them, the terraces are simply the result of tectonic uplift combined with centuries of underwater currents. What looks like staircases are nothing more than nature's coincidence. Yet coincidence struggles to explain why so many of these features appear aligned. Why certain angles match those found in ancient architecture elsewhere. Why supposed carvings seem to depict animals and symbols. Skeptics dismiss these as illusions, the human brain's tendency to see patterns where none exist. Believers counter that it is not illusion but memory, the faint, submerged memory of a civilization we have forgotten. And perhaps this is why Yonaguni fascinates us so deeply. It is not simply a question of geology versus architecture. It is a question of identity. Are we the first great civilization, or merely the latest in a long cycle of rise and fall, of creation and destruction? Each dive into Yonaguni brings more evidence, but never enough to silence the debate. Photographs reveal sharp lines that look unmistakably deliberate. Videos capture divers swimming through passageways that feel designed, and yet no definitive proof emerges. It is as if Yonaguni hovers in the twilight zone between science and legend, between certainty and speculation. And while scientists argue, the sea continues its slow, patient work. Currents erode the stones further, sediment shifts, and the monument hides itself deeper in mystery. Perhaps that is the cruelest truth, that Yonaguni may never fully reveal its secrets. By the time we agree on what it is, it may already be too late. But if this is the case, then we are left with one unavoidable question. If Yonaguni is truly a city, who built it? And what happened to them? The deeper one looks at Yonaguni, the more it becomes a battlefield of belief. To some, it is nothing more than a geological wonder. Sandstone fractured by the patient hand of time, sharpened by tectonic forces, sculpted by the relentless ocean. To others, it is unmistakably artificial, a monument carved by human ambition, the last echo of a civilization swallowed by the sea. For decades, this debate has divided scientists, historians, and dreamers alike. And like the monument itself, the truth remains submerged, visible, yet just out of reach. The skeptic's case. At the heart of the skeptic argument is geology. Yonaguni is made primarily of sandstone, a rock known to fracture in straight lines. Natural processes such as tectonic uplift, erosion, and weathering often produce geometric patterns: flat plains, sharp corners, and layered terraces. In many parts of the world, such formations are well documented. Take the basalt columns of Northern Ireland's Giant's Causeway, hexagonal stone pillars rising with eerie symmetry, formed entirely by volcanic activity. Or the staircase-like cliffs of Hawaii, fractured by tectonic stress. Nature, skeptics argue, is more than capable of creating what looks like human architecture. For them, Yonaguni is no different. The staircases are natural fault lines. The terraces are simply eroded bedding planes. The pyramids are stacked layers of sedimentary rock. In this view, Yonaguni is not a city, but an illusion, a coincidence amplified by human imagination. And imagination, they remind us, can be deceiving. Humans are wired to see patterns, even when none exist. It is the same instinct that lets us see faces in clouds, animals in rock formations, or gods in constellations. This tendency, known as pareidolia, might explain why divers insist on seeing turtles, faces, or carvings in Yonaguni's stone. The skeptic's final argument is perhaps the most persuasive: the absence of artifacts. If Yonaguni were truly a city, where are the tools, the pottery, the remains of structures beyond stone? No human artifacts have been conclusively recovered from the site. Without them, mainstream archaeology hesitates to call Yonaguni anything but natural. The believer's case. And yet, the monument resists easy dismissal. To those who have studied Yonaguni firsthand, the structures are too precise, too aligned, too deliberate to be chance. The steps are consistent in height. The platforms are level. The angles often mirror those used in ancient architecture around the world. Professor Masaki Kimura, Yonaguni's most passionate defender, has spent over 15 years mapping the monument. His surveys suggest roads, plazas, and even what he calls a stone stadium. He points to a possible stone carving of an animal, a turtle, and claims to have found what may be inscriptions, now eroded but still visible to the trained eye. Even more compelling are the monument's orientations. Some structures align closely with cardinal directions, a feature common in ancient temples and pyramids. Others seem designed to catch sunlight during solstices, hinting at possible astronomical purpose. Could such precision be mere accident? Believers find the odds unconvincing. Then there are the oral traditions. Legends from Okinawa and surrounding islands speak of kingdoms swallowed by the sea. Folklore tells of a land bridge that once connected Okinawa to Taiwan, now drowned by rising waters. Could Yonaguni be the last remnant of this forgotten land? To dismiss the monument as mere geology is, to believers, to ignore the weight of cultural memory. A clash of timelines. The fiercest argument centers not on what Yonaguni is, but on when it could have existed. If the monument is artificial, it must have been built during the last ice age, when sea levels were far lower. Back then, much of the East China Sea's seabed was dry land. This would place Yonaguni's construction at least 10,000 years ago, long before Egypt's pyramids, long before Mesopotamia, long before any known human civilization was capable of such architecture. This timeline challenges the very foundation of archaeology. Mainstream history tells us that organized civilization began around 5,000 years ago. Cities, temples, monumental structures, these belong to the era of Sumer, Egypt, and the Indus Valley. Before that, humanity was scattered in tribes and small settlements. If Yonaguni is real, it means our ancestors achieved complex architecture thousands of years earlier than believed. It would push back the dawn of civilization by millennia, rewriting history itself. This is why the debate is so heated. Accepting Yonaguni as artificial means unraveling the timeline of human progress. It means admitting that we may not be the first advanced civilization, but merely the latest. The shadow of Mu. And then, hovering like a ghost over this debate, is the legend of Mu. According to 19th century writings, Mu was a great Pacific continent, home to a flourishing civilization that sank beneath the waves in a cataclysm. Though dismissed by mainstream historians as pseudoscience, the legend has persisted. Believers see in Yonaguni a tantalizing connection. The ruins of Mu's lost cities, lying in silence on the seabed. Is it coincidence that Okinawan folklore speaks of drowned kingdoms? Is it chance that Yonaguni lies at the edge of the Pacific Ring, where tectonic upheavals are common? Or is there truth buried in these old stories? Truths dismissed as myth because they are too unsettling. Between science and imagination, the clash over Yonaguni often feels less like a scientific debate and more like a collision of worldviews. On one side, science demands evidence, artifacts, dates, proof beyond coincidence. Until then, Yonaguni remains a curiosity of geology, nothing more. On the other, imagination insists that not everything can be measured by fragments and carbon dates. The monument feels intentional, and feelings cannot always be silenced by skepticism. And so, Yonaguni sits in the in-between. Not fully accepted, not fully dismissed. A monument suspended between nature and civilization, science and legend. But there is another layer to this mystery, one that goes beyond the monument itself. Because while scientists argue over stone, divers keep discovering features that hint at something larger. Channels that look like canals, walls that extend beyond the central terrace, pathways that vanish into darkness. Could Yonaguni be just one piece of a much greater whole? The shattered ruins of a city stretching across the seabed? And if so, what disaster was powerful enough to erase it from history? The ocean guards its secrets well, but history whispers, and Yonaguni's silence may not last forever. Because every year, more divers descend into its corridors, and with each dive, the possibility grows that one day, someone will uncover the clue that ends the debate forever. Until then, we are left with a question that hangs like a shadow over the waves. If Yonaguni is not a trick of nature, then who were the people who built it? And how much of their story still lies hidden beneath the sea? Beneath the warm waters of the East China Sea, the Yonaguni Monument rests in silence. its terraces cloaked in coral, its walls scoured by centuries of tides. But silence does not mean absence. Every angle, every corridor-like feature, every seemingly deliberate line whispers a question. If this is no accident of nature, then who carved it and why? Scholars are divided. On one side stand the geologists, who see the monument as an illusion of erosion, sandstone fractured by earthquakes, sculpted by waves. On the other stand dreamers and archaeologists with a daring hypothesis that this could be the last echo of a civilization erased from memory, a people whose name has been swallowed by time. What kind of culture would have carved an entire city from bedrock and then allowed it to be claimed by the sea? To imagine this, we must peer beyond written history, into Japan's shadowed prehistory, a time when myth and record blur. Japan's earliest known culture, the Jomon, existed more than 10,000 years ago, long before the pyramids, before Stonehenge. They were hunter-gatherers, artisans who left behind pottery older than any yet discovered on Earth. But they were not known for megaliths or monuments. Their legacy is one of clay, rope-marked jars, and coastal settlements, not stone cities. So where did Yonaguni's monumental design come from? One possibility lies in a culture even older, or perhaps one that existed alongside the Jomon, but never made it into the archaeological record. Could Yonaguni be the footprint of an advanced society lost during the Great Melt at the end of the Ice Age, when seas rose more than 120 meters, drowning coastal settlements across the globe? If so, the monument might be part of a broader pattern. Across the planet, submerged ruins tantalize us with echoes of forgotten worlds. Off the coast of India's Gulf of Kambat, sonar scans revealed geometric structures on the seabed. Near Malta, underwater temples mirror those on land, eerily precise in their alignments. And in the Caribbean, whispers of Atlantis cling to drowned plateaus that resemble city grids. Could Yonaguni be Japan's own Atlantis, an entry in this global catalog of forgotten civilizations? The monument's architecture seems to support this thought. Divers have identified a massive staircase rising in broad steps, each nearly twice the size of a human. A flat stage or platform, as if meant for ceremonies. A wedge-shaped entrance leading into what looks like a corridor. And, perhaps most mysteriously, a rectangular basin resembling a pool, its sides cut smooth. These features seem intentional, not accidental. But here lies the problem. No tools, no artifacts, no bones have ever been found in or around Yonaguni to prove human hands shaped it. And yet, the human eye insists. To swim alongside the monument is to feel dwarfed, as though walking the streets of a city whose builders have vanished. The terraces mirror architecture we recognize. The symmetry triggers our sense of design. Was this really the result of nothing more than waves and pressure? Some researchers argue that Yonaguni's straight lines and sharp angles could indeed occur naturally. Sandstone fractures along plains, they explain, creating geometric shapes. Erosion can mimic steps, walls, even platforms. But this explanation does not silence all questions. Take, for instance, the orientation of the monument. Several features appear aligned to true north, just as ancient temples and pyramids often were. Coincidence? Perhaps. Or could it be that whoever built this structure, if it was built, understood the stars, the Earth's axis, the geometry of sacred design? And then there are the carvings. Divers report faint engravings, symbols etched into the stone. Some claim to have seen what looks like a depiction of animals, even a crude humanoid face. Most of these markings are debated, many dismissed as pareidolia, the human brain finding patterns in randomness. Yet the possibility lingers. If real, these would change everything. They would prove intention, prove culture, prove that Yonaguni is not merely a geological trick, but a relic of humanity's forgotten chapter. The Japanese government, however, has been cautious. Unlike the global fanfare that surrounds Egypt's pyramids or Peru's Machu Picchu, Yonaguni sits in relative obscurity. Officially, it is not recognized as a historical ruin, but as a natural formation. Why such reluctance? Some suggest it is because proving Yonaguni's artificiality would rewrite not only Japanese history, but world history. If the monument is 10,000 years old, as some estimates suggest, it predates every known city on Earth. It would mean civilization arose earlier, faster, and in places we never imagined. It would mean humanity is missing a chapter, perhaps many chapters. Legends deepen the mystery. Local Okinawan folklore speaks of a lost land called Mu, a great kingdom swallowed by the sea. Similar tales echo across Pacific cultures, Hawaiian chants, Polynesian myths, and even Mayan stories describe lands that drowned in cataclysm. Could these be distant memories of real places, real cities, preserved in myth? Atlantis is not alone in memory. Perhaps every culture remembers its own version of a vanished homeland. Perhaps Yonaguni is Japan's reminder. Imagine it. A city rising from the waves, its terraces gleaming, its plazas filled with ritual and music. A culture thriving on an island chain before the ocean rose to claim it. Generations lived and died there, never knowing the sea would take their home. When the waters came, the people scattered. Some may have joined the Jomon, others vanished entirely, leaving only these stone foundations as testimony. And so, what was once a city of life became a monument to silence. But silence is not emptiness. Yonaguni still speaks, through its shapes, through its alignments, through its ability to stir questions. Divers who visit describe a strange sensation, as if the place is alive. It feels like walking into another world, one researcher confessed. The walls close around you, the corridors guide you, and for a moment, you forget you are under the sea. It feels like a city that has been waiting. Waiting for recognition. Waiting for someone to listen. Waiting for the world to remember what it has forgotten. And the deeper we look, the more it feels as though Yonaguni is not an isolated mystery, but part of a larger, hidden network of truths stretching across the globe. What if the monument is not just a ruin, but a message? The ocean keeps its secrets well. Currents guard the stones, coral obscures the edges, and official silence dims the monument's spotlight. Yet it remains there, unmoving like a sentinel in the deep, reminding us that history is never as complete as we believe. And as we move closer to understanding Yonaguni, one question begins to eclipse all others. If this truly was a city, then what else lies hidden beneath the seas we have yet to explore? Because Yonaguni may not be the end of the story, it may only be the beginning. Beneath the restless currents of the Pacific, the Yonaguni Monument sits like a wound in history, daring us to confront what we do not know. For every diver who emerges from its shadows, there comes the same uneasy whisper. This place feels too deliberate, too purposeful, to have been crafted by chance. But if that is true, then the puzzle is not only how it was built, but who could have built it and what became of them. Among the most enduring theories is the legend of Mu, a fabled continent said to have stretched across the Pacific before vanishing beneath the waves. Many dismiss Mu as pure myth, a tale conjured from imagination. Yet myths have strange persistence. Across the Polynesian islands, in Hawaii, and the distant shores of South America, fragments of the same story appear. A land swallowed by the sea, a people scattered to the winds. Even in Japan's folklore, whispers of a drowned kingdom resurface, echoing against the seabed. Could Yonaguni be the only surviving fragment of that forgotten world, a lone witness to the truth behind the myth? The idea may seem fanciful, but so too once did the discovery of Troy, a city thought for centuries to exist only in Homer's epic poems. Archaeology has proven myths can conceal memory, that stories can guard history like a secret chest waiting to be unlocked. If Mu existed, and Yonaguni was one of its cities, then humanity's timeline would need rewriting. Civilization would not have begun in the fertile crescents of Mesopotamia, nor in the valleys of the Nile, but on coasts long claimed by the sea. Some researchers push the claim further, linking Yonaguni to Atlantis itself. Plato's tale of an advanced island society destroyed in a single day and night of catastrophe has haunted imagination for 2 millennia. While the Atlantic Ocean has always been considered its home, what if Plato's words were fragments of older traditions, carried across continents and confused by distance? What if Atlantis was not singular, but one of many cultures swept away by the chaos of the Ice Age floods? Science confirms that around 12,000 years ago, the Earth experienced sudden climate upheavals. Ice sheets collapsed, seas surged, coastlines drowned. Entire landscapes disappeared almost overnight. If a civilization thrived on Yonaguni's now submerged plains, the floods would have consumed it, leaving only this stone sentinel as evidence. Its people, if they survived, would have fled inland, their knowledge diluted across generations until only myths remained. And there is something unsettling about the precision of the monument's forms. Divers describe geometric passages that feel more like hallways than fractures, staircases wide enough to host processions, and platforms shaped as though once used for gatherings or ceremonies. The ocean may sculpt, but does it sculpt with symmetry, proportion, and orientation? Some claim the monument even aligns with astronomical points, echoing patterns seen in pyramids and temples across the globe. If true, then Yonaguni was not merely functional. It was sacred. But perhaps the greatest enigma is not the monument itself, but the silence around it. For decades, Japanese authorities have hesitated to acknowledge it as man-made. Archaeologists argue endlessly, yet funding for extensive study is scarce. Why would such a discovery, which could redefine the origins of civilization, not be pursued with the same vigor as Egypt's tombs or Peru's lost cities? Could it be fear? Fear of rewriting the comfortable narrative of history, of opening the door to more questions than answers. The monument remains locked in ambiguity, a site declared natural in official records, yet treated with awe by those who descend into its depths. And so the debate continues, between stone and sea, between skepticism and belief. Still, one truth is undeniable. Wherever there is myth, there is memory. Perhaps Yonaguni is not an isolated case, but part of a hidden global network of ruins that wait beneath the ocean's surface. We have mapped only a fraction of the seabed, leaving vast realms unseen. What if entire chapters of human history are sleeping there, beyond the reach of our eyes? When the divers resurface from Yonaguni, their voices often carry the same note of reverence. They speak of corridors that feel like invitations, of walls that loom like guardians, of an ancient presence that does not fade even when the tanks run dry. It is as if the monument has been waiting for us, not just to discover it, but to listen. And the more closely we listen, the louder the question becomes. If a city can lie hidden beneath the waters for millennia, what else could be out there, still unseen, waiting for its story to be told? Beneath the shifting waves of Yonaguni, time feels suspended. The deeper divers go, the more the monument reveals, and yet the less it explains. Every ledge, every step, every wall seems to whisper, "You're close to an answer." But just as quickly, another detail throws that answer into question. It is this constant pull between revelation and mystery that keeps Yonaguni alive. Not just as stone, but as an unsolved riddle that refuses to sleep. Some explorers claim that Yonaguni is only the visible portion of something much larger. Imagine this. What we see today is not a monument at all, but the roof of a far greater structure buried beneath the seabed, still sealed away by layers of sand and stone. Could the real city, with its halls and chambers, still be hidden beneath us? Divers have long reported cracks and openings that descend into darkness, pathways that no one has fully explored. What lies down there? Vast ceremonial halls? Caverns carved by forgotten engineers? Or nothing more than rock? The fact that no one knows is what makes it impossible to look away. And then there are the anomalies, features that don't quite fit the story. In one corner, divers have pointed out a formation that looks like an archway, its curve too smooth, too deliberate. Another spot reveals what resembles a perfect triangle carved into the stone, almost like a symbol. Are these natural coincidences, or the fingerprints of intention? If even one of them were real, one single engraving or cut proven to be man-made, it would rewrite history overnight. But the ocean guards its secrets tightly, as though it knows the weight of what it hides. What makes Yonaguni so dangerous to the accepted timeline of history is not just its existence, but its possible age. Some researchers argue it could be at least 10,000 years old, placing it in the same time frame as Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, another site that forced archaeologists to rethink everything they believed about early humans. If Göbekli Tepe showed that ancient people were capable of sophisticated stonework earlier than thought, what does it mean if Yonaguni was not just a temple, but a city? A city swallowed by the sea long before the first Egyptian pyramid rose? That would mean advanced societies existed long before we have ever dared to imagine. And here is where the most unsettling question lingers. What if Yonaguni isn't alone? We know that coastlines 12,000 years ago looked nothing like they do today. Millions of square miles of land now lie underwater, drowned when the ice sheets melted. If Yonaguni exists here, what other cities sleep beneath those forgotten coastlines? What have we missed because we simply haven't looked? Already, whispers are surfacing. In India's Gulf of Kambat, structures eerily similar to streets and foundations were detected by sonar. In the waters off Malta, divers discovered stone temples mirrored by those on land. Even in the Caribbean, strange geometric plateaus suggest grids of cities, not random geology. Are these isolated accidents or fragments of one massive truth? Could humanity's first great civilizations have risen on the coastlines of a world that no longer exists, and when the floods came, their memory drowned with them? The possibility is chilling. Because if that is true, then everything we know about the birth of civilization, the rise of farming, the building of cities, the spark of culture, would be wrong. History, as we teach it, would not just be incomplete, it would be a lie of omission, a story told without its first chapters. And that begs a final haunting question. If advanced societies thrived before the floods, what else did they know? Did they map the stars, as some formations suggest? Did they leave behind technology, wisdom, or warnings, fragments now lost in the depths? If Yonaguni is a remnant of such a people, then it is not only a monument, it is a message from the past that somehow survived the sea, waiting for us to piece it together. Maybe we're not meant to. Maybe Yonaguni wasn't lost. It was hidden. Imagine for a moment that Yonaguni was never meant to be discovered. The currents, the depth, the way the stone sits half-buried, it almost feels intentional, like a secret tucked away by those who came before us. If so, then the monument is not just a ruin, but a vault. A vault of knowledge, or perhaps a warning, left behind for whoever might stumble upon it thousands of years later. Divers often describe a strange atmosphere when they descend. The deeper they swim, the more the silence changes. It stops feeling empty and starts feeling heavy, as though the water itself is pressing down with memory. Some say the monument gives them the sense of being watched, guided through its passages like trespassers in a place that does not want to be disturbed. Could it be our imagination? Or could Yonaguni still be serving its purpose, even now, guarding something that has yet to be revealed? This idea opens a dangerous possibility. What if the builders of Yonaguni understood the cycles of the earth, the rise and fall of seas, the shifts of climate, and built their city knowing it would one day be swallowed by water? What if submergence wasn't the tragedy we imagine, but the plan? Stone preserved by the ocean, untouched by weather or war, waiting until a future generation was advanced enough to find it. That would mean Yonaguni is not just the ruin of a city, it is a time capsule. And if it is a time capsule, then the true treasure is not its walls, its staircases, or its platforms, but what lies beneath them. Cavities in the stone hint at chambers no diver has fully explored. Sediment covers what sonar cannot clearly read. The deeper layers of the seabed may hide something far older than the monument itself. But here's the catch. If there is something buried, retrieving it would mean disturbing the very mystery that keeps Yonaguni alive. Do we dare open a vault if we do not know what it was built to hold? Legends give us no comfort. The Pacific is haunted by stories of lost continents, Mu, Lemuria, sunken kingdoms destroyed for their arrogance. Again and again, the theme repeats. Civilizations that grew too advanced, too ambitious, and were erased by water. Are these simply cautionary tales told around ancient fires, or are they fragmented records of real events? If the latter, then Yonaguni might be more than a monument. It might be evidence of a cycle, that every time humanity rises, the ocean waits to remind us of our fragility. This raises a chilling hook. What if Yonaguni is not just about the past? What if it is about the future? The seas are rising once again, glaciers melting at rates unseen in recorded history. Are we walking toward the same fate as the people who may have built Yonaguni? Could their silence beneath the waves be a mirror, showing us what happens when the waters finally come? And so the monument continues to whisper, not with answers, but with questions. Questions that grip us and refuse to let go. Why here? Why so precise? Why hidden beneath the sea? The deeper we go, the more it feels as though Yonaguni is not a puzzle to be solved, but a door. A door that, once opened, will change not only how we see the past, but how we imagine the future. Because if Yonaguni is real, truly real, carved by hands long before history admits, then everything we know about ourselves must be rewritten. And maybe, just maybe, that's why it has stayed in the shadows for so long. The waves crash endlessly above Yonaguni, yet below, the monument rests in silence, unyielding, timeless, and patient. For decades, divers and researchers have wrestled with its mystery, but perhaps that is the point. Yonaguni was never meant to give us simple answers. It was meant to hold us in suspense, to force us to question everything we think we know about where we came from. Because if Yonaguni is artificial, then history is incomplete. The story of civilization does not begin in Mesopotamia, nor with the pharaohs of Egypt, but in places long forgotten, on coastlines swallowed by oceans, in cities erased by floods. Our textbooks may trace human progress in neat, linear steps, but Yonaguni reminds us that history is not a ladder. It is a labyrinth, and we have only just stumbled into its first corridor. And if it is natural, sculpted by nothing more than stone and sea, then it still challenges us. It reveals how quickly the human mind seeks patterns, how deeply we long to connect with a past beyond memory. It proves that even nature alone can mimic the works of gods, bending stone into shapes that make us question the very boundary between accident and design. But the real weight of Yonaguni lies not in what it is, but in what it represents. It is a mirror, one that reflects both our curiosity and our fragility. A mirror that asks, what else have we overlooked beneath the waters? If 95% of the ocean remains unexplored, how many more monuments, how many more stories lie waiting in the dark? And then comes the question we dare not say aloud. What if Yonaguni is not the past, but the warning? Legends of Mu, Atlantis, and drowned kingdoms echo like thunder across cultures. They speak of civilizations lost in floods, of seas that rose without mercy. And now, in our own age, the waters are rising again. Glaciers melt, coasts retreat, and the ocean prepares to reclaim the edges of our world. What if Yonaguni is not simply evidence of a forgotten people, but a reflection of our future? Picture it. Thousands of years from now, divers exploring the ruins of our own cities, New York, Tokyo, Dubai, submerged beneath waves, their towers covered in coral, their roads buried in sand. They too will ask the same questions. Who built this? Why was it lost? And how could a civilization so advanced have been swallowed by the sea? Perhaps Yonaguni is not a mystery to be solved, but a story to be remembered. A story that warns us of cycles, of forgetting, of arrogance. A story that binds us not only to those who came before, but to those who will come after. And so, the monument remains there in the deep, silent, waiting. A city that may not be a city, a temple that may not be a temple, a vault that may not be a vault. It is whatever we are willing to see, and whatever we dare to believe. But one truth cannot be denied. Once you look into Yonaguni, you cannot look away. The stone grips you. The water hides you. The questions follow you long after you surface. Because beneath the sea, beneath the silence, beneath the weight of millennia, lies a secret that refuses to be forgotten. And whether Yonaguni is nature's trick or humanity's oldest masterpiece, it changes everything. For if a city can lie hidden beneath the ocean for 10,000 years, unseen and untouched, then how many more secrets lie waiting in the dark waters of our world? And which of them will we discover next?